please help us as we welcome Emalia Denune.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. So, I gotta admit, when I first came across your program, I was very intrigued, not just because it's STEM, because there are some STEM, subjects that kind of, I like, to deal with the brain and what goes on in there or whatnot or whatever. But when it says that there was a correlation between STEM and doing braids, I was like, what? Very intrigued there. So, first of all, introduce yourself and tell us about your your um, your program and where you're coming from, so forth and so on.
Okay, got it. Thank you. My name is Amalia Janoon, and I'm the founder of STEM Braids and Beyond and the host of the Silver Bullet STEM podcast.
Mhm.
Most of the STEM products on the market teach STEM discovery, and STEM discovery does not account for the historic oppression of the underrepresented community and the gap that has created in being able to access STEM and STEM jobs. And so my product is like a pre-discovery phase. I define it as being um, critical to STEM discovery success, the same way early childhood education and pre-K is the K to 12 education. What data shows is that 60% of the underrepresented community loses interest in STEM by sixth grade. And part of the reason is that if you don't feel your place in STEM, as was the case for me, it's hard to keep that momentum. But if you know it's what you're meant for, which is a lot more accessible than most people realize, you stick with it, kind of.
I like it. So I know that when we were speaking earlier, you were talking about how you can spot a thing in your child or in your children,
Mhm.
and you have to learn how to play to those strengths, and that some of those things, even in failure, can come full circle and bring them into the STEM atmosphere. Explain that if you will.
My program teaches three fundamental steps. Awareness, which is what I'm doing ahead of launching. And so being aware of what STEM is. And one of the things I said to you, like, what is STEM? Beyond the acronym, what is STEM? And if you can't define that, then your child is not on track to even pursue STEM because you don't know what it is.
Right.
It's just as relevant as saying, "Oh, on the moon, what's happening?" We don't know what it is. And then readiness, which is an assessment I created that builds on the awareness factor. What is it, and how to spot it in your child? That's the awareness.
Mhm.
Readiness is the assessment I developed, and enrichment, being able to align your child to activities that build on their strength. And I'll use my daughter as an example. My son, he was born, I mean, very academically gifted. My daughter, she learned differently. Not that she wasn't as smart, I just had to
Mhm.
find her academic momentum. And when she was young,
I
we
like
would,
that phrase.
yeah, what's that?
I like that phrase, academic momentum. I'm gonna use that.
Please do. And what it is that for a really long time I thought that she didn't test well because we would study together, and then she'll go in and still struggle with a C or B. And I mean, I'm still a trooper. And then I remember, I think it was like third or fourth grade, she came home with her first A. It was 97%. I was like, hold up, what subject is this? It was health.
Mhm.
She's always had dexterity. It's the thing she was born that way, just incredible dexterity. I would later realize that it was she also had great fine motor. So before she had a spot in health, she had great fine motor skills. Also, continuing the momentum of her academic studies, I realized that in math, the area excelled in was geometry. She struggled with everything else. And
Mhm.
so, combination of those three skills, fine motor dexterity, health, and geometry, I started exploring with her, what career can you do? And she realized that surgeons use all the skills And so before I realized it, she built her own momentum. So even when she wasn't successful in a subject or in a topic, she didn't take it like I'm not smart. It's just an area she
Mhm.
needs to work harder in. And so before I realized it, she took on the momentum of hers on her own, and that started snowballing, and led to her saying, Mom, I want to be a neurosurgeon. And I wish I could say like I saw that path for her, but in exploring surgical fields, that's what she decided to do. And being able to spot that in your child and work towards STEM, it's way more accessible than we realize. You don't have to be great in every subject. I'm not good in every STEM in every STEM subject, but the thing that you're good in, kill it.
So, you know what? First of all, I commend you on that because, I also and my wife would try to find whatever our kids were good at naturally and then try to kind of steer them in that direction. But the thing that was different here that you noticed was not just their mental capability, but also her physical capability with the dexterity.
Yes.
And I think that's key. It's something that we as parents need to probably pay a little bit more attention to, so that we can come up to a discovery as you had with your child. What is it about STEM in the Black community that has us kind of like not really seeking it on any level?
I think that's why the first level of my program is awareness, because we don't even know what it is.
That's
You
true.
know, I mean, I'm dating myself, but I was 36 when I found out I had a STEM aptitude. It
Mm,
would take another year before I was convinced that I even had anything STEM. Because here's the thing, and when I talk about finding the thing you're good at, I was never good in biology. I think life prepared me this way to make sure I had this journey. I was never good in biology, never good in chemistry, never good. I mean, I was decent in physics. Um, uh, sorry, I got distracted by the comments.
no, it's
um,
okay. You can address those comments if you like.
Okay. The and but I was really good in math. And you
Hmm.
asked me about the pitch, and one of the things I in high school I created was a mathematical formula that allows me to guess the number of anything in a jar, candy. When I was growing up,
Hmm.
it was beans, and if you won, you got this really big teddy. And
Right.
I developed my own mathematical formula. I didn't
Wow.
know that was a STEM skill.
Hmm.
And I demonstrated it. I've demonstrated it several times. It's going to be part of my Kickstarter reward when I launch. But I've demonstrated the efficacy of of the mathematical formula. At 36, I used the formula at a work event. And one of the engineers, I was working with engineers at the time, and they said, "That's why would you think that?" I was like, why else wouldn't I think about using math? And it got back to the senior program manager, and he got me into engineering projects for the next year. And we had a project we were working on. The lead engineer didn't do the correct brief, and he had to brief our leadership and then the Pentagon. And I caught it. None of the other engineers did. And when it
Mm.
got to that program manager, he said, "Do you understand that you're understanding PhD concepts and you don't have a STEM degree?" Actually, I didn't even have a degree,
Wow.
and I was understanding. And so, this led that journey. Like, how is it? Because you said finding what your child is good at. My parents always said I had a strong business acumen.
Hmm.
So even when my STEM skills showed up, they didn't even know where to place it. Do you know what I mean? So you could even
Because it's
have
unfamiliar.
absolutely, absolutely. And so this is where my program comes in, being able to define what that is and what it looks like. Even if your child has an interest, there's this guy, I actually did a video on him, Cam Peterson. He's a comedian. And he says, "I like rocks." I'm not really or nothing. And
Hmm.
how do you shape that? He could have been a geospatial engineer,
Right.
geologist. I mean, instead of thinking, oh, maybe it's he, and he defines himself as being on the autism spectrum. Really?
Right. I mean, because that's what we told, and that's kind of where we're pushed into.
I,
And Keith, I can see where your disagreement with lies. As a matter of fact, me and Miss Danoon actually spoke about this earlier. And when I say spoke about it, I mean um, I read a book that was talking about how athletes are actually operating at genius level
Absolutely.
when they're, doing their athletic things, the athleticism, the way that they have to think kind of like right
Right.
there in the second
Absolutely.
is genius level thinking. And you agreed and spoke and expounded on that. Go ahead if you will.
Absolutely. So there were 2 points that I made. It's that, so I want to address what Keith Emerson said. You shared
Hmm.
that people of Black people know what STEM is. If you don't mind telling me what is STEM, I want to see what you say STEM is. And without Googling it, tell me what the core STEM skills are. And that is where I would segue into the STEM, the sports and its correlation to STEM.
Hmm.
So about 500,000 athletes are turned away from D1 and D2 scholarships. And I was saying that it is most athletes are exposed to more performance biological training than anybody else, an average person. And so when they don't qualify for a D1, D2 scholarship, those kids should be able to pivot from sports to having a STEM degree, because $3.6 billion in college scholarships go unclaimed every year.
Wow.
What if a child were able to pivot that and figure out what in biology will I excel in? Is it, I mean, let's just use sports and the people who are STEM based who support that. There's physical therapists, there's sports medicine, there's so many areas, performance matrix. They could even be engineering where performance becomes the thing that they specialize in. There are so many areas where they can take the training they've done in athleticism, give themselves a competitive advantage to what's pursuing something in STEM, but they have to know what it is that they're looking at. I agree with Keith. Too much emphasis is spent on sports, but if that's all we're saying is the way to get out
Then
of
that's what we do. Hmm.
then what you want to do is get out of the struggle. One of the things we talked about too was the statistics, where because actually my master's is in analytics, so data is the thing I love most in this world.
Hmm.
Um, and when I was when I was running, and there was my math aptitude, I didn't know it would align with analytics until I was almost 40. But when I did the analysis, the wealth gap, which says for every 10 cents, 10 cents in a black household, 80 cents in a white. That same number is reflected in STEM. 9% of STEM is black, 78% of STEM is white. You round those numbers and the numbers are identical. So if STEM is something we understand and it's so pronounced in the community, how is it that we're not capitalizing on it? And just like we had to, and you asked me, what does braids have to do with STEM? So I'm going to add that right there
Right.
too.
Hmm.
So braid theory is a scientific terminology. The braid theory has a scientific expression and is actually believed to be pure mathematics, which means that it's expressed in art as well as in science. When you look at what the plaits we wear on our hair, our our hair is the artistic expression. The scientific expression is braid theory. And just like someone can play music by ear, the argument is to be made that if you could play music by ear, you should be able to also express or learn the technical aspect, music, the keys. And so my argument became, if you know how to braid and there's a lower level or more technical level of braid theory, you should be able to connect the dots in a way that most people will not be able to, and apply that with the area that you're most skilled in and express yourself in STEM.
All your cosmetologists out there, look at that.
Okay?
Straight up STEM wizards is what you are.
Literally, there was,
Is
you know what?
what you are.
I'll
Is
tell you,
what you are.
that's I actually did an event and a dad came to me and he was asking about hair stuff. And my program used to be called Hair Braiding is a STEM. I made braiding second to it because the conversations were around braiding. And I asked the dad, the dad was telling me that he really wants to have the daughter do different types of braids and cosmetology. She was 12. And I asked him, what subject is she good in? He said, she's not good in anything except math. And
Hmm.
He downplayed everything and her soul sank. And I said to him, I said, so was I. Everything else came later. What
Mm-hmm.
is also, and he said, all she does is walks around and counts all day. It drives us nuts. You know who was counting all day? Katherine Johnson, the NASA astronaut who
Right.
created
Right.
math.
Mm-hmm.
Created math. So here it is. Her STEM skill is showing up in the house, and he's out here. Not no fault of his, because when I said that to him, you could see his whole disposition change. And I said to him, "What if the salon is filled with mathematicians?"
Mm-hmm. Mm. And it sounds like it is.
It sure is. Back in the day, it was a technical field, evolved to be more beauty based.
Right.
And I have my conspiracy theories behind it, but let's just leave it where it is.
Oh, we about conspiracy theories on here now. If you want to share, definitely go ahead and share.
By downgrading the significance of it, the oppression continues.
Mm,
Where we're now fighting for the way we look instead of being able to apply it for to something that can lift our family out of poverty, change the trajectory of our lives.
right. So here's a question: what's a way, or would you say that there is a way that we can kind of help find those gifts in the children early? Because I think most times that's kind of where we fail as parents, and I'm going to use myself as an example. There are a lot of things that my kids were good at naturally, and I would always, of course, find out what that thing is and then say, hey, boom, let's gear everything toward this. But like I said when we spoke earlier, the great thing about what you did for your daughter is that you found out not only what she was good at mentally, but also how her physical skills, having the dexterity, could help
Mhm.
her, and use that as a something that will compound to say, oh, you know what, you may be good, you know what I'm saying, as a neurosurgeon, because these are the skills that they need, you know what I mean? So is that something that maybe the program will help with?
Yes, absolutely. So this is the awareness part of the program, and here's the significance of it. As parents, we do the best we can with what we have. Let me backtrack and talk about my own journey. I'm 5'10". I've probably been 5'8" since I was 12. I was 5'8", maybe up until I was 16-ish. But my parents, looking at me physically, they thought I was athletic.
Right.
Look, I couldn't walk. I would trip on my own feet. Because I learned things quickly, they thought, oh, she'd be good in music. Once again, I had no coordination.
Hmm. Right, which goes along with the athleticism.
Oh, listen, okay. And then my dad tried putting me in languages. I didn't like it.
Hmm.
And so they were doing the best they can with the information they have.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, these are probably the few things I'm remembering. But if you would ask them, they probably could give you a list of because they were relentless in trying to find a place for me. The thing is, the information they had on the police. My mom actually said I should become an accountant, and I went to school for that and dropped out because I when my professor was like, "This is what you guys have to look forward to," I was like, "I hate this," and it took me after working with my kids, working through my own journey to figure out where will I find it. And I
Right.
found fulfillment in analytics. My program not only teaches what STEM is. I'm still waiting for. I think it was the person explaining to me what STEM is, since
No,
it's
he never responded.
the common knowledge of what STEM is
Yeah.
and the core skills. But me discovering it, when you Google what the definitions of what the things are, it literally is like the same words just turned around. So what really is it? And so when I teach from the place of having been a student, the work experience, and the life journey that allows you to understand STEM, what it looks like in your child, how to pair that with different things. Because, like my son, he was obsessed with puzzles at a really young age.
I love puzzles.
Oh, engineer. I found this out on accident.
Hmm.
He was 5 or 6 and doing 300 to 500 piece puzzles like this, 2, 3 in an evening. They said that he had ADHD. I was like, no, he works for 8 to 10 hours on the weekend, knocking out puzzles. And so I started doing research on this before I even started the business,
Right.
because I was determined to get it right. I guess the commitment I saw my parents have for placing me, and then feeling like I wasn't rightly placed,
Mm-hmm.
trying to help my kids close that gap. And just like I was able to do with my kids, I teach in the program. This is how you pair, and that's what STEM comes down to. Pairing different core skills gives you the execution of this child would be excellent in this, and that's where my assessment comes in. I love the analysis and the assessments of data, and that's how my program is shaped around being able to, instead of a child starting in a program that is makes them feel self-aware or like they're not good at something. Like for me, I don't know that failing as an athlete and failing in music, I started feeling like maybe I'm not smart, but what it is I was in the wrong program. My daughter, over I think it was Easter break, I had her in a programming camp. I thought it was just fun to expose her to something different. She did programming in elementary school. And she walked out of it and said, I'm so glad I know what my STEM gift is, because had I gone into that, and this is something I had taught her without using the words, finding your place.
Right.
She said, if that is where I had started, I would have never thought I had a place in STEM. I'm so grateful I know what my STEM gift was before I stepped in there. So I'm able to walk away and say, that is not the right thing for me. It doesn't mean I'm bad at STEM.
I love that. I think your story is so amazing. And I just love that you are addressing like the whole scenario, because let's just be real. Like our parents, like you said, you made a great point. They did what they did with the best they had, but at this point now we know, because there are tons of other resources that were not necessarily available for them. Okay, we're going to go ahead and let that happen, but we're not going to keep repeating those cycles, right? That is where I feel like that we've got to do a little more work, and I love that you did that. Like what would be like for someone that just has no idea what STEM is, but they might have a child that they are experiencing that what you experienced with your your parents, what would you say to a parent and a child that, is going through that, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't know what's going on with them. I don't know what's going on with them. What would be, your suggestion or a recommendation to even, begin the process of finding what their STEM core is?
So before I answer that, I'll tell you one of the biggest, not challenge, maybe hurdles I have in this program. It is so foreign to what the statistics and the belief is around STEM for underrepresented community that I can't even get to meet with. Not can't. It's more of a challenge to get to meet with the people who can make a difference. So the first thing you do as a parent is you need to get in touch with your school and say to them, hey, somebody needs to listen and have a conversation with this woman, because my child needs this resource. Yeah. It's too much for me to teach in a 1 hour session. The program I've put together is over 10 hours. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I even designed was a braiding game that shows you what braids look like on a pattern recognition level, which also is very similar to braid theory, which is the scientific part. I put a lot of research into the design, so it actually activates different levels of the mind. Like there's a lot of work that went into this, but if there's one thing I can say, my son having me recognizing STEM, and it was literally just coincidence, we did activities at the library. And it was at the library that an engineer observed my son and was like, who is this kid? He suggested that I get my son into engineering programs. I'm a single mom. I mean, until I had my STEM degree, I wasn't making a decent salary.
Right.
I looked into the STEM program, $3,000 for 2 weeks, and I have 2 children.
Dang.
Where is this money coming?
Okay.
Right.
The program I developed, it's the high end of it is $1.38 per child. The low end is 25 cents a child. It's affordable. Because and what it is, the way I designed it is so that schools can purchase it, because I was sharing with you, Sincere, that it's a 360 approach. The child needs to be made aware. The teacher needs to be aware so that in the classroom, she's not being counterproductive to the development of the child and not rebellion. And thirdly, the parent or somebody in the family needs to know this is what it looks like. So when the child is doing something, they recognize it and say, you know what? It's the STEM in you, instead of be like, why are you being on my, it's, you know what? That's that critical thinking. Come through my.
Yeah. There needs to be a community built. There needs to be a community built.
And I'll use one example too that I usually share when I'm talking to families. So children love asking why. In a black household, it's seen as disrespect and punishable by death or
okay.
Or damn near.
Them old, restricted ways.
In a white household, that is seen as a STEM skill, and that child is put in engineering. The same skill is showing up in two different households. And then even as a parent, how do you deal with a kid who's excessively curious? And these are some of the things, but I'll share this. Get that joke or some books. And this is where the child's interest matters. So my son will wire you to death to this day. If I die tomorrow, put Y on my coffin. He killed me with a Y. But I started getting him books on, he was obsessed with rocks. I got him so many books on rocks. He was sick and tired. Like now he can tell things about earth science, and he'll argue with you over a rock like the rock is a pet.
Wow. That's
but
great.
I got him the books because I didn't have all the answers. I didn't even know the rocks had different names and all this, but that's the thing that I'm doing. And so,
but I love that you were willing to learn it as well. Like you were willing, even though you knew this, you were still willing to learn and grow. And I think that's what's so important. Like we get a certain age and we have this whole, that's just how I am. I'm stuck in my ways. No, if you are really wanting to see success with your child and your child's child and your child's child, then you always have to be, you've always got to be willing to learn and listen. And I think that's super important.
Thank you. My heart. Yeah. I think too, to credit my parents, I think it's because they didn't give up on my trippy legs. Me trying to find a place for me in the world.
Yeah.
And also being a child who didn't feel like I fit in academically. I was considered the weirdo, and I wanted, what I wanted as a gift my whole life. My parents, it took them my whole life to even get the money. By the time they did, I was leaving home. An encyclopedia. How differently my life would have been had I gotten a chance to just read the whole Britannica.
Right.
You know what? And what's crazy about that? As I was talking to my uncle, as y'all probably have seen or heard him sometime today. And I was telling him, I said, man, I remember when we was talking about gifts for Christmas and birthdays and stuff like that. I said, man, I remember one of the worst gifts my mama got me was the Encyclopedia Britannica.
You better shut up.
26 volumes of those green and gold books. I was mad as I don't know what.
The salesman brought them to the door and she was able to get them on the
my God, bro. I was just like, my mama does not love me.
I would have given anything for an encyclopedia. Forget the computer. Just give me a whole, and I've been an avid reader, and it's also, and so I feel like also not having found my place academically, I didn't want that thing to continue with my children. So, and so, also too, so I'm from Trinidad and Tobago specifically, the smaller of the two islands. One thing that is very big in the conversations, granted, they don't have all the academic information, but one of the things they would ask is, what is the child's gift? That's singing. And it's more art-based, but the question always is, what is the child's gift? And I guess because of that, my obsession, and then my son was killing it, and my daughter was like, but I'm not smart like him. I will not raise a daughter who feels inferior in the world. There's enough people outside of the house who will tell you that. Yeah. At this house, you're everything to your mom and everything to the world. They just don't know it yet. Yeah. And so that became the emphasis where I wanted her to feel smart. I didn't want her to feel inferior. And so I just been relentless at it. And as I said to her, I said, if ever you feel like changing your mind from neurosurgery, I'm okay with it. You get to decide, but I'm giving you the tools to be able to make informed decisions like I wasn't able to. You know what I mean?
Ooh, come on, open-minded parenting. Come on, y'all.
No.
This thing uncovered a couple of different topics. It, you know, it made me kind of want to
Hey.
get into. Maybe we need to do parenting in the Black community.
Hey,
You know,
come on, because you already know. That's why I was
listen,
like, put me back on screen because I need to talk about this.
I mean, because that's. I mean, we all know that we all know that we believe in our children and that our children all do have gifts.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it is it's
the laziness
we
of the parent.
misunderstand how
It's the
those gifts
laziness. They
manifest
lazy.
themselves. You know what I mean?
Lazy. They giving y'all the easy words. I'm giving y'all the real words. Y'all lazy. Y'all don't want to go the extra mile with y'all kids, and I need y'all to stop.
I never said that. I have a different take on it, but you know, it is what it is. I have parents specifically. I mean, not to put my mom on blast, but you know, being Caribbean, they beat for everything, and sometimes being a curious child, I was punished for being curious, and so.
And I agree. I agree with that as well. You know,
I could say that, you know, being beaten so much is lazy parenting instead of taking the time to talk. That's, you know, I feel like you do the best you can. And that is because no parent gives birth to their child, holds the baby like this and say, I'm a mess your life up. I'm a
right. And you right. I say lazy because when the things are presenting to you, you choose to turn the other cheek and you choose to walk away and not even find out. When I speak on lazy, I speak on that because I definitely was a curious child as well. I was labeled the bad child because I was that why person. You hear me?
Yes.
But my wise came with a little reckless because I was a bad kid. I'm not gonna front. But you know what I'm saying? I still was curious to ask questions. I still wanted to know. When I did go to school, my GPA was a 3.5, but I chose boys and being fast and became a teen mom. So you know, I'm totally transparent about it.
Get out of here, not Coach K. Not my Coach K.
Yes.
Not my consciousness out here.
But I was very smart and knowledgeable, and you know, to this day, it shows as well.
So. Ask you a question: is it that you were fast, or is it that you weren't being challenged academically? And because you weren't challenged and fulfilled, you look for expressing yourself differently.
It could probably be a mixture.
That's how we gonna say it, Coach. Don't argue with that. That's how we gonna say it. We gonna say it that way.
That's the story we're going.
That's what we're gonna stick with that. We're gonna stick with that.
Right.
Leave that alone.
You know what? You spoke biology in the 3D. Just tell us the truth.
Oh man.
You want to part of biology class is health. You wanted to accept.
Yeah, but it's a mixture of all. I will say that it definitely was a mixture of all. Because right now, to this day, as a grown woman, it's some conversations that I won't even entertain because it's not challenging to me.
Absolutely. Listen, okay, yeah, absolutely. I'm with you.
I'm telling you, they be like, you acting funny, because you talking about some empty stuff. I'm talking about stuff over here. So I'm straight.
That's good.
Hey, well, look, we come to that point where we at the end of the show, but I must say I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Absolutely.
Amalia, and also, like I said before, once your program launches, we want to make sure that we have you back on so that we can again talk about the program and any other specifics that might be available to us as far as information goes.
I might have to steal this guest too. I definitely want you there on the Empire and Real Talk podcast, baby. Most definitely. So I'm stealing her, Sincere. I'm just telling you out the gate.
Right. So, hey, Amalia, again, let them know what your podcast name is and when and where they can catch it.
Okay, so S.T.E.M Braids and Beyond is where you can find me on all social media platforms. The places I'm most active is LinkedIn. So you look Amalia Dini and I'm there. YouTube, S.T.E.M Braids and Beyond. On the YouTube channel, there's a podcast tab, and you click on the podcast and you'll see interviews I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm bringing STEM careers to the community. It's a lot of different people, different ethnicities, different jobs. If I only did people who look like us, I wouldn't have anybody there because there's not enough of us.
Right.
My first podcast was actually just a shameless plug about it, was actually a United Airlines line check pilot, which means he supervises, trains, and approves the pilots that fly the plane. Here's a piece about STEM most people don't realize. I'm sorry, about a pilot most people don't realize. You don't need a degree. Pilots make between $100,000 and $400,000 a year. You're not college material, but you're technically sound. These are options that are available for you, and these are the things that I share on my podcast on a weekly basis to get the community educated on what STEM is, what it looks like, the jobs that are available to you, aligned with your interest, so that you can go out and be the best STEM professional you can be in the world. And also on Kickstarter, you can look for my program, STEM Braids and Beyond. If you look on any of the social media platforms, it's linked there. Go ahead and follow it. The key to a successful Kickstarter campaign is 1,000 followers. So it's live, you can follow. I may switch out some of the information to increase the rewards, but you can get in touch with me and we can chat about it some more. And I'm looking forward to being on Coach Kay's podcast.
There you go. And
Period.
for y'all who ask or want to know, her first name is Imali, as you see on the screen. Last name is spelled DENOON. So you make sure that you type that into YouTube, and you'll be able to get right straight to her page. So I appreciate you very much for coming on. I love what you're doing. I definitely support what it is that you're doing. I wish you nothing but continued success. And Coach K, you got anything you need to say before we roll out of here?
Nope. I just enjoyed this conversation. I definitely love these type of growth field conversations. So Maya, please continue to do what you do. I will definitely be in touch. I've already subscribed on YouTube. I'll find you on LinkedIn and sign with there, and we could communicate through there. But listen, y'all, it's just all about growth-minded conversations. And these conversations gonna be a little uncomfortable. So don't take offense. It's all for the better of our growth, because that's what it's all about for us. So, keep doing what you do. If you're having struggles, problems, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here for communication, for conversation, because listen, the journey is necessary, baby. So y'all can follow me on all platforms as well at Coach KAYWDS. And be in tune, because the new season of the Empowering Real Talk podcast is coming. So you'll see them on there as well. So I'm excited.
All right. And next week we're gonna have Dr. Cornelius Jones on, and we're gonna be go ahead.
Second, Sincere, I didn't get no round of applause, and my feelings are so.
Right, give us a round of applause. She needs that. Call him out.
There it is, right there. There it
Call
is.
him out.
There
Good.
it
Thanks,
is.
sis. Call him
Look
out.
at
Good.
look at you, a mess. You a mess.
It's rubbing off on me.
Oh man.
Go ahead, honey.
Look, like I said, everybody, please make sure that you tune in to us next week, as we're going to have Dr. Cornelius Jones on. Get familiar with the face, and we're going to be talking about Black male mental health with the good doctor. So please make sure you join us next week. That's going to be a great conversation. He's a very knowledgeable gentleman, very intelligent. I love speaking to him. He's a good friend of mine. So it should be a pretty good show. So hey, signing off is your main man with the game plan.
Deuces, y'all.
Peace.